Section 15 of The Psychology of Peoples by Gustave Le Bon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Oxen Handler. Book 4. The Dissociation of the Character of Races and Their Decadence. Chapter 1. How Civilizations Fade Away and Die Out. Dissolution of psychological species. How hereditary dispositions, which had required centuries for their formation, may be rapidly lost. A very long time is always necessary for a people to raise itself to a high level of civilization, and in some cases a very short time for it to descend therefrom. The principal factors in the decadence of a people is the lowering of its character. The mechanism of the dissolution of civilizations has hitherto been the same for all peoples. Symptoms of decadence presented by some Latin peoples: development of egoism, diminution of initiative and willpower, lowering of character and morality, the youth of the present day, probable influence of socialism, its dangers and its strength, how it will cause the civilizations that undergo it to return to wholly barbarous forms of evolution, the peoples among whom it will be able to triumph. Psychological species are not eternal any more than are anatomical species. The conditions of environment which maintain the fixity of their characteristics do not last forever. If the environment is modified, the elements of the mental constitution which it has determined end by undergoing retrograde transformations, which lead up to their disappearance. In accordance with physiological laws as applicable to the cells of the brain as to those of the body, are observed in all beings. The organs take infinitely less time to disappear than was required for their formation. Every organ that does not fulfill its function soon ceases to be able to fulfill it. The eyes of fish that live in the lakes of caverns lose the power of sight after a time, and this infirmity ends by becoming hereditary. Indeed, even if observation be confined to the brief life of the individual, an organ that has perhaps demanded thousands of centuries for its formation by slow adaptations and hereditary accumulations is rapidly stricken with atrophy when it ceases to be used. The mental constitution of beings cannot escape these physiological laws. The brain cell that is not utilized ceases to fulfill its functions, and mental dispositions it took centuries to form may be promptly lost. Courage, initiative, energy, the spirit of enterprise, and various qualities of character that were a long time in being acquired disappear quickly enough when they cease to be exercised. This fact explains how it is that a people always requires a very long time to raise itself to a high level of culture, and in some cases a very short time to descend into the abyss of decadence. When the causes are examined that led to the successive ruin of the various peoples with which history is concerned, whether the people in question be the Persians, the Romans, or any other nation, the fundamental factor in their fall is always found to be a change in their mental constitution resulting from the deterioration of their character. I cannot call to mind a single people that has disappeared in consequence of the deterioration of its intelligence. For all the civilizations of the past, the mechanism of dissolution has been identical. So identical, indeed, that it may be asked with the poet whether history, which has so many books, has but a single page. When a people reaches that degree of civilization and power at which it is assured that it is no longer exposed to the attacks of its neighbors, it begins to enjoy the benefits of peace and material well-being procured by wealth. At this juncture, the military virtues decline, the excess of civilization creates new needs, and egoism increases. Having no ideal beyond the hasty enjoyment of rapidly acquired advantages, the citizens abandon to the state the care of public affairs, and soon lose all the qualities that had made their greatness. Then barbarian or semi-barbarian neighbors whose needs are few, but who are strongly attached to an ideal, invade the two civilized people and proceed to form a new civilization with the debris of that which they have overthrown. It was in this way that, in spite of the formidable organizations of the Romans and the Persians, Persians. The barbarians destroyed the empire of the former and the Arabs that of the latter. It was not in the qualities appertaining to the intelligence that the invaded peoples were lacking. From this point of view, no comparison was possible between the conquerors and the conquered. It was when Rome already bore within it the germs of its approaching decadence that it counted the greatest number of men of culture, artists, men of letters, and men of learning. Almost all the works that have made its greatness date from this period of its history. But Rome had lost that fundamental element which no development of the intelligence can replace: character. Footnote, quote, "The evil from which Roman society was then suffering," unquote, writes M. Fostel de Coulanges, quote, "was not the corruption of the morals, it was the weakening of its willpower, and so to speak, the enervation of its character," unquote. End of footnote. The old-time Romans had very few wants and a very strong ideal. This ideal, the greatness of Rome, absolutely dominated their souls, and each citizen was ready to sacrifice to it his family, his fortune, and his life. When Rome had become the pole of the universe, the richest city of the world, it was invaded by foreigners hailing from all countries, and whom it admitted in the end to rights of citizenship. As all they demanded was to be allowed to enjoy the luxury of Rome, they had but little concern for its glory. The great city then became an immense caravanserai, but was no longer Rome. It seemed to be still alive, but its soul had long been dead. Analogous causes of decadence threaten our hyper-refined civilizations, which are menaced, however, as well by other causes due to the evolution produced in men's minds by modern scientific discoveries. Science has renewed our ideas and deprived our religious and social conceptions of all authority. It has shown man the trifling place he occupies in the universe and the utter indifference of nature towards him. He has perceived that what he used to term liberty was merely ignorance of the causes of which he is the slave, and that in view of the inexorable necessities of which they are the puppets, to be slaves is the natural condition of all living beings. He has learned that nature ignores what we term pity, and that all the progress it has realized has been due to a pitiless process of selection that involves the perpetual crushing of the weak by the strong. All these harsh and glacial conceptions, so contrary to the teachings of the old beliefs that enchanted our forefathers, have given birth to ominous conflicts in men's souls. In vulgar brains they have engendered that state of anarchy as regards his ideas which seems characteristic of the modern man. In the case of the young generation of artists and men of letters, these same conflicts have resulted in a sort of sullen indifference that is fatal to the will, in an utter incapacity to embrace any cause whatever with enthusiasm, and in an exclusive cult of immediate and personal interests. Commenting upon a very just reflection of a modern writer to the effect that the, quote, sense of the relative dominates contemporary thought, unquote, a minister of public instruction proclaimed with evident satisfaction in a recent speech that, quote, the substitution of relative ideas for abstract notions in every field of human knowledge is the greatest conquest of science, unquote. The conquest declared to be new is in reality very old. It was achieved many centuries ago by the philosophers of India. Let us not be too ready to congratulate ourselves that it is tending at the present day to gain ground. The real danger to modern societies lies precisely in the fact that men have lost confidence in the worth of the principles that serve as their foundations. I greatly doubt whether it would be possible to cite in all history a single civilization, a single institution, a single belief that has succeeded in holding its own by taking its stand on principles esteemed to have only a relative value. Moreover, if the future seems to belong to those socialist doctrines which reason condemns, it is because they are the only doctrines whose upholders speak in the name of truths they declare to be absolute.